Yes. So just let's revise from the starting up so that we'll be in a better shape to start on further with list, dictionary and everything else, right? Just to revise everything. Python's comments are very important because these comments guide us the code, the well needed reusability, so that the others also can work with us in cohesion as a team, and that's why comments are really needed. I shared the PDF of a coding convention which I have used last. Uh, as far as whenever you join an organization, they'll share these coding conventions with you. So it's not like that you need to prepare on that. I'm just sharing as a reference material. But this is really important. So we should start our coding standard, coding guidelines, secure coding from day one itself, basically. And that's a kind of need of the hour as well, because there are lots and lots of financial institutions. They are using Python as an fraud detections and everything else. So Python is really going critical, rolled out across the domains. So coding conventions, coding guidelines, and secure coding. These are the three really important things, right? We also had a look at the W3 Schools Python tutorials. Please go visit those things. They'll guide you if you are missing any functions, methodology, techniques. We might visit that thing, and please guide me if I miss something. This can happen because there are lots of additions, subtractions do happen as far as Python environment as an evolution goes. We also look at single line comments, start with hash. There are multi-line comments with either 3 single quotes or 3 double quotes, and then you have to end it with 3 quotes, whatever you use to end that comment, right? I'll also share the link of 18th Feb session recording, so you can have a look at it. It's one of the best startup taught by Jayanti Shah, who was trainer working with us, but now he is not with us. So he moved on and all those things. As we've seen, there are 3 different ways to program Python. The command line, which is a kind of older way, or the oldest way rather. Then we have Jupyter Notebook, and then we have Spider. Jupyter is good for testing new things, testing new functionality, trying out certain things. So for multiple, for 2 or 3 lines at the max, Jupyter is a good. But if you want to look, if you want to work in a project with a team with multiple files and all, we normally go for a Spider, which is normally internally updated by Anaconda. It's a part of Anaconda, a complete ID, integrated development environment, where we have lots of library collaborated with the Spider already there. So we don't have to really download a library separately, but there are certain library rights, Google TensorFlow and all those things we might need to download and then start using them. I'll guide you on that as well, don't worry. But Spider gives a good head start so that the environment is prepared for you. You don't have to worry about small thing like enabling matplotlib, enabling basic graphic functions and so on and so forth, right? These are kind of repetitions. A typical simple code, we can just start with x equal to 34 minus 23, and you can add a comment with hash and so on and so forth. These are the basic programs which we already tried, and I believe in and out of such scenario. Even in Windows or a couple of other ways, you can start Python with a command line with IDLE. You will start with that command line interface directly as far as Python goes. About understanding code, again, I couldn't stress enough on code readability. So indentation does matter. Even Python compiler, as we've seen in a couple of programs last time, the indentation does matter to Python as well, because Python normally executes a block as a single line because there's no line delimiter in Python. Like C, we have semicolon, or in Java also we use semicolon as a line delimiter, but in Python we don't have line delimiter. So the block is considered as a single line as far as the Python environment is concerned, right? First and foremost things, the variable assignments, we've seen this thing, we've tried this program also. Plus we have mathematical operators like equal to, plus, minus, into, and all those things which are standard with all linguistics packs. So these are also similar, in case of Python as well. There are logical operators like and, or, not, and with ampersand sign, or with just forward slash, not it with that pipe thing. So not is with the exclamation sign. That's how we use it. The simple printing command is print. In C we use printf. In Java also we use printf, but in Python we just have print. Okay, we have seen the basics of video of why we do Python. So let's skip out those things. Deep, have you watched those that video why we code in Python? You got the link for that?
Which one? Sorry.
Okay, I'll share the link again. Don't worry. We
Okay,
normally play some good video because to get another angle to the learning. So I do play some YouTube video because even my monotonous tone can basically hamper the learning, right? That's the psychology what we can discuss on. If you really keep hearing same voice again and again, you try to lose interest. So in between the training, I normally play 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, at the max 10-minute video to get another angle, or one of the few good training videos available on a YouTube. These are freely available on a YouTube, so you can watch it anytime. I'll share the link again, and I'll share these YouTube links after the our session conclusion. So I normally give a minutes of meeting in the GuruSchools format, then I share these links. So do visit these links. In addition to that, I also share a couple of good videos which you should go through it whenever you are free. I don't want you to basically stretch yourself in the night and all, because we normally end at around 10:30, 11, right? So whenever you get time next day, or that's why we normally have a gaps in our training, right? So
Sure.
that you can practice on whatever we worked on, and you can have a look at this video in depth. If you want to subscribe, you can subscribe to them as well, because there are quite a good number of trainers available as far as Python data science goes. Means even if you look at the young fellows, they are really good in terms of what they are teaching, what they are guiding on. At least they've done the due diligence to learn those things. And Python is also like an ocean, like sea. There are many things. Means if you look at the C, and if you look at the pointers, there's a simple variable called pointers in C, right? There are around 800 PhDs or the abstracts available on IEEE site itself. And if you look at the Python, the number of doctorates which being allocated by Institute of Engineers as an institute or institutions are also in a great numbers. I think the last I saw was 1270 awarded PhDs. That's a doctorate of philosophy, doctorate of research, as far as Python platform goes. So if you want to continue educations, you can also do a PhD in Python. You can do a PhD in machine learning. You can do a PhD in NLP, neural linguistic programming. We'll discuss this thing. This will come at the latter stage. But you can still do a PhD on a simple operator like plus. How do we do operator overloading? How do you assign these mathematical operators, or various ways of using mathematical operators in Python, and so on and so forth. So these things do happen as far as if you want to go into the educational field, and this can really bring you good nomination brand to yourself as a person, right? And so on and so forth. Then yes, the basic data types are basically integer, all those basic data types, string, all these things are there in Python. String, you have to just mention the quotes. Double or single quote doesn't matter that much, but mostly as in practice we normally mention double quotes, right? As in to the strings variable type. Floats you can just mention it's an x equal to something, so that if it's three number plus decimals, then it's a float. That's how. Yeah. Anybody have any question?
No, I think we're good.
No, Ravindra. Yeah.
No problem. No. I just heard something, so I asked. Okay, so the typical integer, when you assign a number to a variable, it's an integer by default. If you assign a number with a decimal, the Python interpreter make the variable as in float. If you assign anything with the double quotes, the Python interpreter treats this as a string, and that's how the Python intelligent compiler, intelligent interpreter takes it that way. We need to understand this just to make sure we don't do mistakes on such a basics level. That's why I'm just sharing with you. There are something called white space. White space are really meaningful in Python because the environments respects the white space. If you look at C, Java, if you can complete your program in a single line as far as the text editor on your desktop or laptop goes. In Python, no, the white space does matter to the environment itself, because we are trying to reach to a level where we might generate certain source code from editor itself, and we'll basically get to that level whenever we will work on machine learning. And there we have a Python as an interpreter generates codes for you. How does it generate? It includes, as we see, the block. There are no delimiter as far as you don't to type any delimiter, but these white space, these block, the lines you enter in between, they take the place of delimiters. So that's why Python interpreter interprets those extra line here given as a block separations. Okay, here the concept of block is more predominant than line. So whenever you speak in interview, rather than line of code, we normally go by block of code. But yes, if you count the line, you normally call it line of code, means for the estimation and all purpose, but actually it's a block of code. Okay, there's no braces to something like function, something like loop and all those things, because we normally use this block as a single what I can say a single line, right? Because these are the delimiters for loops and all those things. It found a bit different if we used to C or Java. It find a bit odd to not to have delimiter or to exclude delimiter, and that's why they were basically getting more and more interesting as far as Python development goes. We want to really decide how the interpreter will basically fiddle around with these braces, curly and this and that. Well, we do use braces, like for argument passing and all those things, but otherwise, like for loop, like for functions, we normally stray away from them, and we normally go with the blocks of code. Use consistent indentation is a necessity in Python. That's what I want to make sure you understand what I'm trying to say. Colon start of a new block in many constructs like function definitions and then clauses, right? Last time we said that if function, right? We've basically started with a colon. So the operator, then colon, then defines the intrinsic variable used by the loop itself, and then the loop from the next line. That's how we did the if. Let me open that and showcase that program to you again. Let me open the spider. It'll take a minute. So this is how white space are important as far as Python goes, because we are migrating to an intelligent editor, intelligent integrated development environment. We normally refer as an IDE. So whenever interviewer asks, why don't we have statement delimiter in Python, you can tell them we are moving to the 6th generation and afterwards, to make sure our editors, our linguistic development is much more easier, much more intelligent, so that the Python environment itself understand these line delimiters or the block delimiters the way we normally discuss in Python. And this takes care of the overall brace, additional braces which we need in our day-to-day programming as far as the other non-intelligent editors goes. Could you see my spider screen?
Yeah, yes, we are able to see it.
Yes. So where do we have this colon last time? Okay, could you see this colon which I have my mouse hovering on? This colon basically tells like this condition, the condition end here, then we have execution. So there's a block end and then this condition. Okay, and the even this block ends with a line delimiter, or the block end, like we've ended the block with a line space. This is how it works. Okay, let me try to uncomment it and try to play this again, so that we know this is not a kind of okay, let me try to run this again for you. Okay, so see, my A is to B is to, it says A equal to 1, then this, and then I have another, same block. This is the same block, right? Last time I have shown you. If you put an enter here, then if you put an enter here, it will be a separate block. But if as I don't have an enter, this is a block, and now this error is for this indentation. So I need to indent, sorry. Oh man, insert is off. Where is insert? Okay. P. Right here, that's right. Okay, unexpected indent. So that's how it really, matters to Python as far as overall indentation is concerned. Now the indentation should have been solved. Right. It's still creeping about that. Okay, so I need to basically get this thing. Yes, now it will work because it's on a same block. So the indentation does matter. If I say A equal to 1, so it will get executed. It'll execute both of its, these things, right? So this is how the indentation work as far as the blocks are concerned, or it treats the indentation or white space as a block or a single line of commands to be executed as far as the environment goes. Does it clear? Means, does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Yeah, we are good, Ravindra.
Yeah.
I'll also share the recording of this session so that you can have a look at it whenever you want to look at it, if you want to refer to it, right? Okay. Now comments again. Comments are necessary because as we see, these are all challenging scenario as far as our previous non-intelligent editor goes. So comments really important as far as debugging or the maintenance of a code goes. So I would really have you start practicing for writing comments. So do add a line. If you look at Spider, okay, let me show you that also. In Spider, whenever you start a program, okay, I'll just say new program. You can say new program from here. See, basically it start with these things. What does this make say? What does this signifies you? If you start any new program in C, it start with a function main. If you remember, if you start a Java this thing, it normally starts as a blank program. Means if you use Java Cafe, Boardland Java, or Boardland C, Microsoft Visual C++, you might have understanding, might have known these things. But in Python, it normally start with these many lines. So what does this signify? It signifies first is coding is UTF-8. This is a standard ASCII coding. So this means that I can use another ASCII coding as well. And if you go to W3 Schools Python, I want you to do this on your own. Try to find out how you can use another, ASCII codes within Python as a programming mechanism. You can do that. And this is the only way you can generate pseudocode in Python. I don't want to go and teaching you about pseudocode and hacking on all those things, but just to share with you. Okay, if anybody have any special interest in that, do ping me, and I'll be happy to share those details as well. But let's first complete Python as far as environment learning goes. So we can use or we can define the Unicode ASCII. What we are going to use in this programming with that hash thing. Okay, that's added as a commit, but get translated at a specific pattern level with Python interpretations. Then we have created. So I want to have a basic, details like when this program, the author started creating and the author name. This Ravindra is taken from the machine name. So my desktop's name is Ravindra. That's why it's calling it author : Ravindra. Okay. This is also, if you know Java, in Java, we have something called Java docs. So what does Java docs does? Java docs is a special utility in IDE which creates documents from the code, the help files from the code. Same thing we have in Visual C, C++, same thing we have in Python. So these tags like the, hyphen, star, hyphen, the @author, these tags, or these are basically what you can say XML data types. These are XML data types are normally compiled into documents as an author Ravindra. So whenever I create these documents from these, source code files, they'll say the code author was Ravindra. It was created and so on so date. It was last modified, because that's a files modification date, right? Which can it can create get it from the file manager or whatever file utility you use with the OS. If it's Ubuntu, then it's I think it's file handling. Yeah, file handling class library, which Ubuntu uses internally to manage all these files creation, modification. It keeps track of those files in, even at a byte level. So I can have those things pulled out from there and dumped into Python documents to be created from the source code automatically. So most of the time, whenever you work on a project, you have to have these, these are called XML tags. So you have to program these XML tags in your Python program to make sure whatever documents get generated, these tags get reflected correspondingly in those documents. So there's no special help required to create documents, because the best documents are normally created by the developer itself. And that's what we studied for last so many years. And that's why we normally have these things. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Does that? Sure. So, if you used any other environment, then you have that environment to compare to. If you're not, then just treat it as these are the added, flora and fauna to your programming to make sure the overall you work in a complete unison with the team. So you are in sync with the team, and you are doing whatever documentation is being generated for this code through such measures. Okay. So these are for the comments. Let's move ahead. We haven't discussed this, so this is a kind of new. We have discussed the assignment, the equal to operator, the overall schematics and all those things. I'll just repeat it for the basically. So the normal assignments are similar to other linguistic packs. So we have x equal to 3 means the variable x now has a value of 3. So x is being created in memory, specifically dynamic memory called RAM, what we normally refer to. It's given in a position as an address of a RAM, and the integer 3 gets stored into that. So whenever say x equal to into double quotes Ravindra, the Ravindra as a string gets stored into x, and the address is normally mentioned in the program. Okay, and so on and so forth. So these things does happen as far as the typical linguistic executions for assignment goes. Names in Python do not have any instant tick type as we've seen. So I don't call it int x equal to 3, or so on and so forth with other variables as well. So we are working with an intelligent environment where I can just say x equal to 3 or 3.4, and the type of the variables get changed on fly as and when I need it. So that's kind of added advantage. So it makes the programming much easier if you practice it that way. Naming rules, normally I have already shared the PDF file with you. Have a look at that. These are the kind of standard way of naming your variable. You can't say x equal to. You have to say why you have that variable there. So I might put number of iterations, and then I'll give, so I need to name that variable NUMITR, means it's a number of iterations equal to so and so. So this way we normally name our variables. There are a reserve word which we normally don't use as a variable name, and these are generated as a warning to you. But if you say and one, so and one is a different word for Python as far as computer goes, right? It's a different expression. So and when equal to whatever string, float, integer you want to use, you can do that thing. But normally there are strict Python coding standards, and have a look at that PDF, and you'll get to understand how we normally label our variable. Okay, so labeling of variable is taken seriously as far as Python scientific community is concerned. We are joining the scientific community. We are migrating from a typical engineer level to a scientific level. So we are going to become a scientist. So for scientists, there are some standardized rules which are already drafted by a good number of scientists. So whenever you join the community, you normally follow their rules, right? So Python coding standard, Python white spacing indentation is a need of the hour, and we need to follow them. Okay. Chalo. Next move. Well, naming convention, I have given some, few samples here. Joined lower for function methods and attributes, joined underscore lower for all caps for constant. Constants are all in all caps. Function names, method names are all in lower cases. Steadily caps for classes. So we normally give capital whenever we are basically inserting a new short forms or new variable which are not there or which are not created earlier, mentioned earlier in your documentation, right? Then we have okay. Let me show this again. We had a look at this link last time, but oh come on, I need to copy it off. Oh come on. But let's have a look at it again, and let me bring that up. Okay, I can play over here. Now let me share that with you. Stop share. I'll share again. Oh come on, where is that? Okay, here you go. This is a really standard Python page specifically for style guidelines. So if you're starting as a programmer, this has been created and getting modified quite constantly. You can also contribute to this. This is an open system thing, but you need to get registered with this community. It's not as simple as you start typing and getting added. There are good number of things given here in terms of actually joining the scientific community of coding conventions, how you can be one of them, or how we can contribute ourselves to the open system as well. Open system is basically built with lots and lots of contribution. So scientists like us, if you treat yourself as a scientist, you can use these coding guidelines to join their join their community, so that you can start sharing your ideas also, and you'll get appreciated. There are students, or there are good number of engineering students got job via contributing to these guidelines or the code base as well. So don't feel this is not serious matter. This is really serious matter. These scientists, they help each other. That's a close-knit community we are talking about. These are not like typical engineering groups. Engineering groups are normally have a tea, have a food. Okay, how are you? Okay, let's meet again. But simple. In scientific community, they really get attached to you. They really value your inputs. They really scrutinize your input as well. So there's another side of coin as well. So whatever we contribute in terms of the scientific community, it has to be well defined, well styled, and well conveyed. For that, we have to use coding guidelines. We have to use coding standards like indentations and all those things. And we need to also follow secure coding guidelines. Okay. So these are basically, we are talking about style guides for Python. And then there are, let me, play a video for you to basically understand how this secure coding practices helps us in basically understanding how do you code securely as well. Because as a scientific community, recording it. Rajni ma'am, that's really great homework, and you've used all the thought process to use other methods as well. And now step by step will make our life easier. That's a kind of crude way of programming in terms of using lists as a basic what you can say vectors if you compare to C or Java. So this is like a list. Now we're going to learn dictionary. We're going to learn tuples as well. Okay. And tuples are the most used, dictionary are the most used, lists are used, but lists are basically a bit cumbersome to retrieve, to add, append, and it takes lots of RAM, lots of memory, as in number crunching memory. And well, I'll again come to the processor differences here, means Macintosh versus Windows. In Windows, we normally have these Intel processors, right? Or AMD processors, or nowadays was those Rayon, those are the processors from oh, I forgot the name. The other processor, like they have Rayon 6, Rayon 4, Rayon 7, I don't know what not, Rayon 9, and all those things. They are in par with i7, i9 multi-core processors like Intel. So these processors are mathematical processors. So they can crunch number at a much larger space than a graphical processor. Graphical processor more intended towards the graphics, towards the UI part of it, right? Python is more mathematical. So we're going to use maths efficiently. we crunch the data in terms of petabytes and terabytes and all those things. As far as graphical process goes, they can handle pixels in petabytes and terabytes. So there's a bit of difference of approach as far as a processor command line execution goes. And that's why we normally go with the Intel processor. Does that make a difference for us as a student learning? That will hardly, differ in seconds or in minutes if you go to the, the project work and all those things. But overall, if you look at the, scientific community, if you look at the overall working on job is concerned, you normally work on an Intel-based supercomputer or Intel-based multiprocessor system like Xeon and all those things, right? So if you practice on Intel-based thing, that'll be much easier, much better, much in line with the whatever you're going to work on job. So something like that. So normally, these guys give you a laptop in the scale of i7 or i9. As far as the data scientist goes, we just got a laptop last week on one of the students from TCS. He's working as a data scientist in St. Louis or that area, Midwestern area. So that's why I know he got an i9 with Dell, and it's almost if you look at the cost wise, it's almost I think 1900 or some cost. So it's quite costly laptop, and that's what we use normally as far as the math crunching goes. And this also contributes to the variable we are going to use. So list is a bit inefficient, dictionary is a bit advanced than list, but tuples are the most advanced, and we'll see why, how, and where you couldn't use or shouldn't use tuples, where we use dictionaries. List is basic variable type, available in other platform as well, but we don't have dictionary available in C with a crude form, but yeah, not as efficient dictionary as Python. But the tuples are available in Python, which are a new latest variable available after Python 3.3 onwards. That's why the trainer which was suggesting the coding guidelines, he clearly mentioned use tuples if you have 3.7 and onwards, Python 3.7 and onwards. Okay, so let's so we know how these variable names, the assignments and everything works as far as Python goes. We had a look at string, and even Madam Rajni Madam showed us a couple of methods here which she might have she have used, and so on and so forth, right? So strings I have already mentioned. I have also shared this PPT with you, the presentation with you, so you can download this thing and have a look at it whenever you want to. So you can have these list of functions, and I already told you how to get a list of function. In Spider, control space is the way to get the list of functions for a variable like string, int, or a typical operator as well. Okay, now simple data types. We've seen string S with double quotes, right? Methods on string, upper, lower, capitalize, count, and blah 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 things. Then we have list. We've started with a list last time. Let's take a step further and try to understand list and the other list available in Python. Lists are used to store multiple items as a single variable. So I can have a list Ravindra and have all types of student names in it, like student first name. I can have list second name and all set of student second name, and so on and so forth. The list are one of the 4 built-in data types in Python. So you have to use an external library for these. So you have list and tuples. Tuple. There is a pronunciation difference if you go to European data scientists, but overall let's call it tuple for the time being. Then we can, or you can change your pronunciation if you start working with more of major of European or major of American and blah blah things. And there are set is similar to mathematical set. Then we have dictionary. Okay, all with different qualities and usage, and we'll see step by step. Lists are created using square bracket. Lists are just like dynamically sized array. We used to call them vectors, if you remember. Declare in other language like vector in C, array list in Java, and so on and so forth. List need not be homogeneous, like it's not just like all strings, all in these things, but the best thing in Python, like you can have multiple data types like integer, string, as well as object within list. So you can have list within list, like even madam has showcased in her program. So you can have multiple lists in one variable as well. List in Pythons are ordered and have a definite count. So when you append, the list gets shifted in the memory. This thing does matter when you do higher programming, because then you need to collect the last list trash, because those are the huge lists we are talking about as far as data crunching goes. Okay, and we'll see to that when how to enable the trash characters and how to guide them for a news list as well. So list in Pythons are ordered and have a definite count. The elements in a list indexed according to the definite sequence. The indexing of a list is done with 0 being the first. Okay, this thing we need to remember whenever you try to enumerate, when you try to basically pull out a specific position in your list. Each element in the list has a definite place. As far as RAM or addressing goes, we don't use pointer in Python. If you know pointer, you can directly pick up a variable from a typical place, right, in C. Okay, and that's why C is a really big black hole as far as programming goes. Python, they try to exclude pointers, but still you can address memory up to a great level. Don't worry about that. We are not doing that right away, but each element in the list has a definite place. Whenever you start programming with memory addresses, it's the most efficient or the low level programming what we talk about. That's why the place of a variable does matter whenever you try to build efficiency in your execution, the program executions we are talking about. So which allows duplicating of elements in the list, with each element having its own distinct place and credibility. Attributes, credibility is basically attributes. Does that make sense, or am I confusing you more? Could you understand what I'm trying to say here?
Yes.
Okay. If you get confused, please do ask question. Don't wait for me to ask you to ask questions and all, man. Okay, so let's move. And then we have compound data type list. Like the first is just numerical list, and then second is basically you can add append with foo. Foo is a string to add it to a numerical list, but still you can append those things. Okay. Let me play a video for you called list in Python, and we'll understand as well. This is all about list. Let's take a step further. Lists are basically kind of flexible array. It's a mutable, so you can add, append, and all those things, sort as well. These are the standard list operation I have already mentioned in the presentation. As share this presentation with you, please have a look at this list, and then we can basically try out a couple of things here. Yes, basically and these things. Let's move on to the other list or a type of list called dictionaries. Dictionaries, even we use today, it's inserted in Python 3006, available in all IDE after Python 3.7. That's after 2019 October afterwards. Okay, so dictionary, let's try to understand how dictionary is more efficient, more better than a basic list. Okay, dictionaries are used to store data values in a key value pairs. So if you have any know-how of deep learning or machine learning, we use a key value pair. So there's a event and there's a decision. These things we keep learning on these pairs. So dictionaries are used extensively in machine learning or deep learning, where we have multiple levels of learning. Okay, so here what we can say, we have to have a key value pairs. A dictionary is a collection of which is ordered. Order is important because whenever you access certain thing which is much more faster in ordered fashion, or I can directly skip the pointer till where I want to land with this dictionary position. So that's why order is important. Then changeable and does not allow duplicates. Dictionary does not allow duplicates because it's a pair, right? So you can just refer to the key twice in case if you need to refer to the same value. We talked about as Python version 3.7 plus dictionaries are ordered. Python 3.6 and earlier dictionaries are unordered. So ordering dictionary to make it more efficient as far as machine learning goes, they have implemented after 3.7. Dictionaries are written in a curly braces and have keys and values. Dictionaries in Python is an unordered collection of data values used to store data values like a map. Even Google Map use dictionaries, and Google Map use Python. Google Map is artificially intelligence enabled, and that's why dictionaries are really frequently used things. When you try to find something near to your house, like typical Google Maps pops up, that map and the whole bandwagon of the program gets executed in the background based on Python dictionary mechanism. So it's really important to understand dictionary and practice dictionary on our own. Okay, so we talked about this, and that's now it's an ordered collection of data value. That's we've talked about. Okay, so let's move further. Uh, well, curly braces, and they are referred as a associate arrays, but that's not a correct term, because now we have ordered associate array where one value refers to one value of others and so on and so forth. But still, it's a kind of much efficient way than a typical list, right? So for that, we normally use dictionaries in Python. Let me check out if I can. Man, where this video gone? I really couldn't. Wait a minute. Come on, not NumPy. Dictionary, right? Come. Give me. Okay, let me go follow. So I normally have a video on dictionary as well. Let me play that thing for you. List in. Okay. Guys. Yes. Let me let me share that video with you. Come on. I need to go and stop recording first.